Brought to you by Penguin.
Beauty is in the Street by Joachim C. Häberlen, read by Nadia Albina. Introduction. The history of post-war Europe is full of protests large and small. Across the continent, from Paris to Prague, from Wiel in southwest Germany to Wroclaw in Poland, ordinary people took to the streets, challenged established orders and demanded political, social and cultural change. City dwellers struggled for access to affordable and decent housing. Women campaigned for the right to abortion, gay men for the decriminalisation of homosexuality, and migrants without legal status for the right to remain in their adopted homelands. In the 1970s and 1980s, hundreds of thousands of protesters participated in demonstrations against nuclear armament and what they understood to be the militarization of society, while committed activists set up protest camps against military bases and occupied construction sites to stop the building of nuclear power plants. From 1968, when students and in some places workers revolted all over the continent in an attempt to democratize universities, workplaces and society more generally, to 1989, when immense crowds brought down communism in Eastern Europe, these were decades of massive protest. What can we learn from this history? Why does it matter for our world today? Studying these protest movements provides a unique and enriching perspective on post-war European history. It shows how ordinary people who had the courage to take to the streets made history, not only those, usually men, in power. It gives a sense of how profoundly contested political decisions, cultural norms and expectations, and ultimately entire societal orders were. But most importantly, we can learn about the alternatives to the status quo that people envisioned and tried to build. For activists went beyond organising protests against something: nuclear power plants, the militarization of society, laws prohibiting abortions, even capitalism and communism themselves, to imagining something else, something better. They longed for a different world, a world in which nationality would no longer matter, which would be free of sexist and racist discrimination, where people would live and work together in solidarity, liberated from the constraints of traditional morals. A world in which it would be possible to enjoy an authentic life, true to humans' longings and desires, untrammelled by the falsity of consumer capitalism. This was more than just dreaming. Militants strived to put their visions of a better world into practice. They formed communes where they hoped to escape from conventional family life. They set up self-managed businesses where they worked without a boss, seeking to overcome the feelings of alienation they associated with work under capitalism. Not least, they tried to change their personal lives by exploring different forms of intimacy and sexuality, developing novel understandings of masculinity and femininity, and questioning those very categories, and living in harmony with nature. All of this was part of the struggle for a better world. There is thus something utopian to the history of protesting. It illuminates people's dreams, the futures they hoped for, and the means by which they tried to achieve them. These past struggles remain part of our contemporary reality. Conservative politicians frequently blame these movements for what they consider a devastating decline in patriotism and family values, or even a collapse of any moral standards. May 68, the moment when the international student movement reached its apogee in France and the country seemed to be on the verge of revolution, has inflicted intellectual and moral relativism on us, said French presidential candidate, later President Nicolas Sarkozy, at a rally in April 2007. The heirs of May 68 have imposed the idea that everything has the same value, that there is no difference between good and bad, truth and falsehood, beauty and ugliness. They have proclaimed that anything is permitted, that authority, civility and respect are finished, that nothing is great, sacred or admirable any longer. France, Sarkozy claimed, needed to liquidate the inheritance of May 68.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?